Hi, everybody. It's Mrs. Murphy. Today, we're going to continue our discussion about Unit H with a look at electromagnetic radiation, or EMR. EMR is a tool that's used to inspect atoms and molecules. We already saw in the photoelectron spectroscopy that X-rays are used, but in a lot of different experiments, infrared waves are used, or microwaves, or ultraviolet rays. So we're going to take a closer look at the electromagnetic spectrum and see how this can be used in chemistry. For those of you that have taken physics, some of these things I'm about to talk about should sound pretty familiar. But the first thing that I want to go over is these two equations right here. So the first one is that energy is equal to Planck's constant times frequency. So the energy of a wave is equal to Planck's constant times frequency. H is Planck's constant. It's on your formula sheets. And then C, which is the speed of light, another constant, is equal to the wavelength, which is the Greek letter lambda, times the frequency. So speed of light equals wavelength times frequency. This image kind of gives us a visual depiction of wavelengths. So if there's a very low frequency, there's going to be a low energy. Frequency and energy are directly proportional, but those are inversely proportional to wavelength. So you'll notice that low frequency and low energy have very long wavelengths. So high wavelength, low energy and frequency. They're inversely proportional. On the other end of the spectrum, we've got very short wavelengths, and that means that there's a high energy and a high frequency. So the shorter the wavelength, the higher the energy of the electromagnetic wave. We've categorized some of these waves depending on their wavelength. So wavelengths of 100 meters to about 1 centimeter, those are things like radio waves used for radar, television, FM and AM radio. Then we get a little bit shorter wavelengths. We're into the infrared zone. Then we have visible light. Smaller than visible light, we move into ultraviolet, then X-rays, and then gamma rays. This particular diagram shows the highest energy waves on the left, but sometimes they're flip-flopped. So which statement about the top electromagnetic radiation wave compared to the bottom electromagnetic wave, which statement or statements are true? Select all that apply. So we know a couple things. We know that the top has a higher energy. We can see that it's a higher frequency. They also have the same amplitude. You can kind of relatively tell that this amplitude is the same as this amplitude. If the bottom is infrared, the top could be ultraviolet, because we know that this has a shorter wavelength, and we know, as we saw in the previous diagram, that ultraviolet has a shorter wavelength than infrared. AP is not going to ask you about amplitude. That's definitely more of a physics thing, but it was true for this question. Which of these types of radiation has the lowest energy? Good, microwaves. In the previous diagram, we could see that of these given, microwaves had the longest wavelength, which means it has the lowest energy. It also has the lowest frequency. The next largest would be infrared, then visible, then ultraviolet, then X-rays. Which radiation below do we use in photoelectron spectroscopy? I mentioned this in our lecture about PES. So that would be X-rays. X-rays, they're not just used in PES, they're also used to measure bond length and arrangement of electrons in crystal structures. The reason X-rays are used is because they have lots of energy, and they have enough energy to remove electrons and atoms. And they're used in crystallography and used to measure bond lengths because the nucleus in those images shows up as more dense than the X-rays do in the image. So that's why X-rays are used there. Don't really worry about that though. The key piece is to know that X-rays are used in PES. Which type of radiation can be used to analyze the concentration of colored solutions? Keyword here was colored. Colored means we can see it. So that would be the visible spectrum. Color is a manifestation of visible light, which is related to electron transitions. So we can use something called a spectrophotometer, and I'll show you guys this in class this year. Spectrophotometers measure intensity of color using visible light. Ultraviolet light can also be used for the same purpose. Which of the radiations below is used to study the vibrational motion of molecules to study the bending and stretching of bonds? That would be infrared. This is not something I would have expected you to know, but it's the one that hadn't been talked about yet. So IR spectroscopy measures the vibrational movement of bonds. So when you take organic chemistry in college, which comes after this level course, you'll probably perform your own IR spectroscopy experiments where you have to analyze the data and determine what the molecules are depending on what peaks you see for different bonds. So this table summarizes all of those radiations in terms of how they can be used for a tool in chemistry. X-rays have shorter wavelengths, so they have higher frequency and higher energy. They can remove core electrons. They can be used to examine binding energy, and they're used in PES and X-ray crystallography. UV and visible EMR excite the valence electrons, but they can't get into those core electrons. Infrared has much lower energy. It just changes the vibrations of the bonds, but it doesn't actually knock any electrons out. And microwaves have much, much lower energy, and it can be used to study just translational and rotational motion of atoms. So now that we have a little bit of an understanding of what exactly electromagnetic radiation is, the real place that it's going to come up in this course, this is kind of the more important piece of this lecture, is with some calculations. So there's two regions of your equation sheet that you should take a look at, and I recommend pulling that up right now and finding these equations on there. So under the atomic structure section, they give you those two equations that can be used with electromagnetic radiation. Energy equals Planck's constant times frequency, and speed of light equals wavelength times frequency. They also give you those constants, Planck's constant, which is h, and the speed of light, which is c. Those should be located right near Avogadro's number. And they tell you that E is energy, V is frequency, and lambda is wavelength. So we're going to use that in the next couple slides. So make sure you have your periodic table handy. We're going to do some calculations, just like this group of scientists. This is a picture from the Solvay conference in Brussels in 1927. I bet there was a lot of calculations happening here. There's a total of 17 Nobel Prize winners that attended this conference. everyone from Planck to Marie Curie to Lorentz, Einstein, Schrodinger, Pauli, Heisenberg, de Broglie, Born, Bohr, all of these scientists that we hear their names come up with things we learn about in class, they were all at this conference, which is a pretty cool picture. So we're going to do some calculations, and these are typical to show up on the AP exam, but they're kind of just plug and chug. All the equations are given to you. You just have to plug in the numbers and solve. So the energy of radiant light is capable of breaking molecular bonds. The longest wavelength of light with enough energy capable of breaking the bond in a single oxygen molecule is 242 nanometers. So we are given the wavelength of light. Calculate the frequency of this light. Then we're going to go on to calculate the energy of a photon and the minimum energy in kilojoules per mole of that oxygen bond. So take a moment and see if you can set up this first calculation. How would we solve for frequency if we're given wavelength? Look at your equations and see which equations would be helpful here. So the equation you should have chosen is the C equals lambda V, but I'm going to rearrange it because we're solving for frequency. So frequency would be equal to C divided by lambda. And now I just need to plug in my information. C is the speed of light, it's a constant. And lambda is given, 242 nanometers. But notice, this is the one place this gets tricky. These units are not the same. Speed of light is meters per second. Wavelength is nanometers. So we need to make these the same unit. So I'm going to include a conversion factor here. I know that there are 10 to the 9th nanometers in 1 meter. That is a conversion factor you need to know. It's one we don't use a lot. It only really comes up in these type of problems, but you need to know it. Nanometers is 10 to the 9th meters. So that converts my nanometers into meters or my meters into nanometers, however you're thinking about it. You could do this step first before you put the 242 into this. You could convert this into 242 times 10 to the 9th meters, and then just plug that in, or you can do it all as part of one big step. Doesn't matter as long as you have that conversion in there. And then we just solve it, and we find that there's 1.24 times 10 to the 15th seconds to the negative 1. If you haven't seen it before, this exponent next to the unit is telling us that unit is in the denominator. So see how here this says meters per second? That could also be written as meters times second to the negative 1. The exponent, the negative exponent, tells us that it's in the denominator. So that would be our answer for the first one. Next question, calculate the energy of a photon of this light. So now we're calculating energy. Take a moment to set that up and see if you can get the answer. So for this problem, we have to use the frequency that we calculated from the first part. We're going to use our equation for energy. Energy equals Planck's constant times frequency. We plug everything in, paying attention to our units. Seconds are going to cancel. We're going to be left with joules. So our answer is 8.22 times 10 to the negative 19th joules. That's the amount of energy of that photon of light that has a wavelength of 242 nanometers. Finally, we're going to calculate the minimum energy in kilojoules per mole of that oxygen bond. So the only difference here is that we're going to be converting from joules into kilojoules per mole. So to do that, we know the energy. I can convert that into kilojoules using my conversion factor. There's 1,000 joules per kilojoule. And then I also know that there are 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd bonds in 1 mole. So if I multiply my number, my energy, by Avogadro's number, that will give me the number of bonds that I can break per mole. Because this is the energy for just 1 bond, but we need it per mole. So after we set that up, we plug it in, we solve, and we get 495 kilojoules per mole of bonds would be the amount of energy, the minimum amount of energy required. So those are the 3 examples of types of calculations you're going to have to do here. Calculating frequency, we can use wavelength. The trick there is to make sure that the nanometers and meters conversion is done. Solving for energy is pretty straightforward. There's no tricks there. And then if you're trying to get energy per mole, you have to use Avogadro's number. Those are the 3 types of calculations you're going to have to do with electromagnetic radiation. And they're pretty formulaic. So you just need to find the equation, plug everything in, check your units to make sure you don't need to convert anything, and then solve. That's all I've got for you guys for now for Unit H. The rest of the slideshow is on my website, and you'll find that there's some more practice problems and answers. So I would encourage you to find that and to go through some of those problems to help practice some of this stuff. Have a good day.